and welcome to the fourth webinar in our series where we will continue to learn about ExactPath in secondary education. My name is Beth and I will be your host. Today we will dive into using growth data to drive classroom instruction in secondary education with ExactPath. Over the last 3 weeks, we have discussed ExactPath in secondary education on a variety of topics, such as the powerful partnership that exists between ExactPath and NWEA's MAP assessment. We focused on how educators can assess with ExactPath's adaptive diagnostic to provide targeted instruction. And last week, we looked into what and how could the implementation of ExactPath actually play into a Bell schedule, specifically through a flex period or blended learning. So today, we will review using growth data to drive instruction through individual and group assignments to accelerate skill mastery. Just in case you missed any of our previous webinars and need a quick recap, or just actually an introduction of what is ExactPath and how it works, ExactPath supports individualized learning across K through 12 reading, language arts, and math. It begins with ExactPath's diagnostic, or NWEA's MAP data, to determine where students are ready to learn. Students below, on, and or above grade level can all be successful because instruction is catered to their specific needs. Students can work at their own pace in a friendly environment, and the learning adapts as students experience success or show signs of needed additional support. Students will monitor and provide intentional instruction, whether it be one-on-one and or small groups. Then, during the next administration of an assessment, teachers and students will be able to identify academic growth and reteach where necessary. As we have mentioned, the creation and everything of where it starts with ExactPath. The creation of these individualized learning paths, as well as pinpointing individual and group instruction, begins with a diagnostic from ExactPath or NWEA's MAP results. The scores you see here, whether it be a scale score or a RIT score and a grade level equivalency per domain, each student will have a personalized learning path stemmed from these diagnostic assessments. The diagnostic results create individualized learning paths like you see here. Each educator can dig into learning path progress using a friendly status legend to determine if students assessed above, mastered, they're practicing, or possibly struggling on any given skill. Information can be filtered by domain, but the entire skills progression is available for review. Now that we have our assessment data and our individualized learning paths, the intentional instruction may begin. And as a teacher, we may use this information to decide if we want to accelerate, reteach, or create an intervention. Now, there's a lot of words on this chart, but really what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the differences, the little nuances between acceleration, remediation, and intervention. When you understand the differences of these instructional approaches, and better yet, the value that each one holds, your practice as an educator can become even more intentional. For example, don't spin your wheels organizing all students into small groups for an intervention block when only 10% of them require a small dose of acceleration or extended remediation style of instruction. And don't stop to remediate a concept to the entire class when just a subset of learners would really benefit from a hands-on alternative instructional method to achieve understanding. Knowing when to remediate versus intervention to best meet students' needs will make for a much more balanced learning environment. With ExactPath, two things kind of happen simultaneously. And we call these two things, one is making it happen and the other is letting it happen. The letting it happen is actually the learning path. The students have taken their test, the data is uploaded, it creates this individualized learning path that when students go into their portal, they have specific assignments, specific skills, one skill at a time that they will work on. And as they come in daily, hopefully, they're able to work on a skill with a lesson, a practice, and a mastery quiz. Each box contains a lesson, a practice, and a mastery quiz. That is actually letting it happen. We have 3 other ways, and this is kind of the meat of this webinar for today, is the 3 options for the teachers to make it happen. We can create assignments individually, create assignments by groups, and then with formative standards mastery quizzes, we can see, have students mastered a specific skill. When teachers create assignments, they may select by standard or domain or skill or grade level, and then they can push this assignment to 1 or more students, and that assignment will pop up into their Exact Path portal. This is one way to make it happen. The second way is by our grouping feature. When I go into the system in just a minute into our demo account, we're going to look at all 3 ways: the creating it as an assignment, this automation of small groups, and then the third will be standards mastery. Now, the small group feature, things change from diagnostic to diagnostic. The story changes on a daily basis. Students are mastering skills from this one moment in time. Every time a trophy is earned, students have mastered it. So in order to know, where are my students today? It's been a few months. Where are they today? I can use this small group feature to auto-populate and then create individual, or actually group assignments per group of students that I am working with based upon their need. Then the third is our standards mastery. This is an extra add-on. It's new. We're pretty excited about it. It's available for grades 3 through 8, but you may have students in 9 through 12 who are still trying to master a few skills in grades 3 through 8. So by taking these aligned to your state standards, whatever state you're in, this will change. We can populate pre-made 10-question quizzes. Just assign it really quick, and that will populate in their program, and they'll be able to demonstrate mastery of a particular standard, or that's the goal anyway. So let's go live into our Exact Path and just talk about this for a few minutes. Remember, we're going to take our data, whether it is the Exact Path diagnostic or NWEA's map. As soon as that assessment is given, the data shows, and as a teacher, I can say, okay, in geometry for this particular class, I have 2 students who are at the 4th and 5th grade level in geometry. And then I have 4th students who are at the 10th grade. So these 2 students I could work with and maybe have a little bit of a group instruction or pinpoint exactly which skills they need to work on. That is the same thing here in geometry when we have our diagnostic. I am able to see in this particular class, I have a few students who are still at the 1st and 3rd grade level and a few at the 4, 5, and 6. I am able to sort, and I can see that these 2 students, I would really need to do intentional instruction to get these kids up to 8th grade level or 6th grade level, depending on where they are. So again, this is the one moment in time where they are. So when we take this data that is in your Exact Path portal as a teacher, I can then go into my knowledge map, which is really our learning path. This is everybody's individualized learning path, no matter how they performed on the assessment. Now is where I can start to pinpoint and say, I see a student who is working on a building block, which means after 2 times, they're not quite getting it. So if I click on an individual skill, I can see they did the lesson and they've done a practice with 58% mastery. So I'm going to go into this resources tab and I'm going to have a few different other options that I can work on this particular skill with this student. This is making it happen. I don't want them to struggle. I don't want them to not pass it after a few times. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to intervene. I'm going to pull Amna off and I'm going to say, let's do this worksheet together. Show me where you're going. Show me what you're doing. How is your thinking process? And then as the teacher, I will be able to redirect so that when we are done working together, they can go back onto the system and master that skill. So that is one way that we as a teacher can make it happen, sort between our classes, understand where our students are, and how can we help with that individualized instruction using these additional resources. Now, in my classes, we have groups and assignments. Let's start with the assignment feature, because this is the first one we talked about on the screens that we were watching on the slides. The assignments is where a teacher wants to intentionally push out a skill, a priority skill, whether it be on grade level or maybe below. They can use the data from the assessment, or they can say, you know what, based upon the learning path, this is where my student is, and I need to give them a priority skill to see if we can get a little breakthrough. So if we're in reading, I'm working with my 7th grader in reading literature and textual evidence. I want to give them the appropriate content style, right? So it has the look and feel that's appropriate for a 7th grader. I can select and I can automatically give an end date, pick my right class, and assign it to that student. When they go into Exact Path, that assignment will be there for them. I could have picked multiple students. I could have picked a skill that is on grade level and given it to all of my students for an assignment across the board. That is a particular skill, pushing it out to a student with a lesson, a practice, and a mastery quiz. The second option we have is our grouping feature. As we mentioned, the story changes day to day. The diagnostic data, whether it was MAP or whether it was Exact Paths diagnostic, that was one moment in time. But now the story has changed, right? We have some students who are mastering skills, some who might be stuck on the building blocks, and some who are moving really far ahead. And so therefore, as a teacher, I would like to do a little bit of group work. So I am going to select my class. I want to work on algebra and expressions, maybe writing expressions. This auto group feature, this is going to create my groups for me. It takes all of the students and it plops them into a particular group that I can rename. There's my stars and my triangles. Maybe I want to do, these are my circles, right? This is just for you as a teacher to know what are your names of your groups. These particular students assessed above, these have not yet taken, and these 2 students placed above. I have the ability to drop and drag a particular student in to any group that I want. Maybe this child is going to work well with these 2, so I want to create an assignment for these particular 3 students. Maybe Arian works very well with this group. So they can work offline together with a worksheet that I choose to print, or I can simply create an assignment for these students based upon the skill that we are focusing on. I want the 6 through 12 content style. I can actually review it as well. And then I want to select, and I'm going to then assign. So the grouping feature, again, is very nice when I want to know, okay, based upon that knowledge map, I've got 30 students, there's colors and blocks, and while it's beautiful, things are just changing all the time, right? I have colors and I have situations, and well, who still needs help on, oh, let's go to an older skill. Let's say who needs time on time elapsed? Who needs help? I would be able to see, or just for this purpose, I would be able to see this particular student was placed above. These two have mastered. This one assessed above. These two are not there yet, right? So imagine having 30 students or so go down the list instead of saying, okay, I want this student and this student. This one gets a different one. These two get a different one. That's what the auto grouping is for. It just takes all this great colorful data and it puts them into groups so that you can easily assign work. You can easily assign a skill, a lesson, a practice, and a mastery quiz. So individually, we can create assignments, skill by skill. Groups, we can choose our groups, and I can actually make notes to myself. If I wanted to remind myself of a note, I can actually make a new group. A new group can populate, and I can add students into that particular group. The third way, this is an add-on. Remember, I mentioned this is a new add-on we have for grades 3 through 8. It will align to your state standards, but this is the third way that a teacher can make it happen. The teacher wants to formally assess with a 10-question quiz on, let's go to rational numbers. By clicking on the link, I am able to see what are the 10 questions they're going to be presented. I can print, or I can simply select and assign. Exact same way that I created an assignment for a priority skill, or the same way I created an assignment for my groups. But this is a standards mastery, so it's not going to be the lesson, the skill, and the progress check. This is going to be a way to say, I need a 10-question little quiz to see if they have mastered it. Did the work that we did individually and in small groups, have they mastered it? I'm going to put an end date. I'm going to select my class. It's got the title. I want Arian and Haley to show me what they know because I know that they've been working in it. So if we assign, they have that 10-question digital quiz now in their exact path. And in my classes under assignments, this is where I can see if I assigned a priority skill or a standards mastery quiz. I can see how many students have turned it in, but the most important is my data. These particular students still need some help. I need to work with them. These 4 kiddos, they know it. We're good. We are done. I am not going to spend any more time with them on this particular standard. So 3 ways, again, that you can push out assignments. You can make it happen. The learning path lets it happen. We can do a specific assignments with a priority skill. We can do groups, or we can do standards mastery with formative quizzes. So let's go back and kind of finish up our presentation. When we talk about all the work that students have done, I am a huge fan of making sure that specifically students in grades 6 through 8 are starting to keep track of all of the skills that they've mastered, right? It helps with that motivation. They are able to keep track of their trophies in Exact Path, but also by writing it down. So just know that we have trackers available if you would like students to write down how many trophies they have earned, because in the long run, when you've earned a trophy, you've mastered a skill. And that's always nice to see and take a little bit of control of on paper, because sometimes in the portal, you know, we're very used to motivational or reward systems popping up, but are the students really paying attention, intentionally paying attention to the growth that they have made and to become excited about that? So I did want to point that out. We do know that Exact Path can be used in many different ways, tier 1, tier 2, or 3. I showed you the grouping feature, the standards mastery, on, above, or below grade level, but we do have dosage recommendations based upon your goals and implementation models. So you can take a look at these and just know, kind of on average, we like to see 40 to 60 minutes per subject per week. If you want to just kind of keep track, this is the minimum for a tier 1. And then if you can get some more time in for tier 2, tier 3, even better. So it's a real simple equation. Assessment data plus individualized learning path and that targeted intervention equates to student accelerated academic growth. Over here, this assistant superintendent in Louisiana couldn't have said it any better. Student A doesn't have to be at the same pathway as student B. We're all trying to get to the same area, but we aren't all starting in one place. And we as teachers know that. We know all of our students are all over the board. But with ExactPath, teachers do not have to create individualized assignments, and they can easily assess and teach with the tools that ExactPath provides. We want to thank you for joining us for this webinar today. And if you missed any of the first 3 in this series of 4, please reach out to your partnership manager for the link to the recordings and/or to learn more about what Mentum's ExactPath can bring to your students' academic growth. Thank you so much for joining us today.